So, Oak Island. Got a feeling this is how this was built. So, first, you need to dig yourself a mine shaft in a freshwater basin. So, when you dig, you dig, and eventually you hit water. And then you put a clay plug in the water and weight it down so you have a dry shaft to work in. Same deal over here. Cofferdam. This is dug out in a mine shaft kind of fashion. At which point they can tunnel from here and up here. Any waste from the tunnel can be taken up, pulleys and so on. Get this cleaned out of here. You'd also have to dig a hole here. Now, this wouldn't have to be big. This is your treasure shaft. We'll talk about this chamber here first. So the treasure shaft would, again, go down to connect with this and to these two. This would all be filled with rock so it could flow. This would be filled with rock, and I think it's clay down here at the bottom, which means it's a natural filter, like we'd use in off-grid places. So by the time, it was also a rate limiting situation because it would take a while for the water to get down through here, and then it would work its way up through here. We'll talk about the system in a minute. So you dig a hole here, maybe two, depending on what your plan is, but the simple plan is one. So you do that, and then you dig yourself another hole out here. It could be two outlet situations. We'll talk about the top outlet. So you take a relief valve, or relief hole out to there, and then the system is still dry at this point. It's all, it's just tubes, and because this is still cofferdammed off. So then what you do is you backfill your hole. So all you need down here is enough rock and things, because water's going to flow through these rocks. It's going to be pretty clean by the time it gets down here. It's going to flow slow, but it should flow through here eventually. We'll talk about that too. But so anyway, as long as you had, some rock here so the water could do its thing, what would happen is you would have yourself a lock. You fill this thing in, and then you blow your cofferdam, and then this thing starts filling. So it'll start filling with water, and it'll come down here, and this will start filling up, and it'll start filling at your plug, and more it'll fill up through here, and eventually it will fill up to wherever the tide happens to be. When the tide comes up, over your little inlet, filter here, well then this would raise right here. So if you had your outlet above the high tide line, when it raised, it'd stay up there. It would stay at that point. Then when your tide would come and go, and that line would be right there, and you'd have a nice little hidden chamber underneath the water. And all you had to do is kick out a plug right here, and at low tide, and then this would drain naturally right out to sea. Now, the other thing they could have done, if they're real clever, was if they understood the idea of steam and pressure. If this was a smaller kind of thing, they would have had to have this, secured, obviously, from cave-ins and stuff, but, it's not real big pressures other than, these people are sailors. I'm sure they could handle, waterproofing something at this point, and these, this stuff required to do this. So if you could seal this up, well, when you drain your machine at low tide, this little room here was empty. If you could light a fire right here, get a nice bit of hot coals going on, and put a seal here. If you could do that, then you wait for the tide to come in. And then you're going to get some steam and some pressure. That pressure would push this down. This would act as a natural lock. It would push this down and empty this whole thing, and you could get at chambers down here. Now this would be nothing to empty, it would be all rock, but the idea would be, is this would drain all National Treasure, Indiana Jones style, and you'd be able to get into a chamber that would just be so difficult to know what was even there. Even this one, just a top chamber based on one little valve, would be quite a cool little pirate lock. So, I guess I think I got that. But the problem, of course, is down here. So anything that is down here would have had to be put down there before the clay plug which means all this was built on top of it. This is definitely a machine, so this was built to do this. So whatever was put down here, I don't think it was ever meant to come up, so it was probably, evidence to pirate crimes or whatever. Anyway, that's my theory. So one last thing. If you were to backfill this, and you were to leave some pretty interesting stuff in here, if let people know they had hit something and left, little clues for them all along the way, knowing that you're never going to get anywhere with any of this, well, it would make a pretty cool little decoy hole, especially since there's a little triangle thing over here pointing at the money pit. X never marks the spot.